Hello. It's been a funny day. So I'm a person who has a bit of a problem with my lower back. So I think it was caused by a fall down some stairs in my early 20s. I had an attic room with very slippery carpets, and one day I was really tired, halfway through my master's, working full time, trying to make my way towards a job, living in a student house, and slipped all the way down these attic stairs, and I didn't have time to fully recover because I was doing an overseas journey, and I was 23 or something, and we're also cavalier about these things. And since then, from time to time, I will have difficulties with my lower back, which over the last couple of years sometimes results in my lower back completely spasming. And I'm basically bent double and I can't really walk. And today, halfway through an online class, my lower back, despite the fact that I'm feeling strong, I've got good strong core strength, good mobility, yoga teacher, it's warm, it's sunny, everything's feeling well, my lower back seized up. And the rest of the day, it means sitting. Now, don't be fooled by this cool, calm exterior. I'm absolutely furious because my lifestyle does not involve being sedentary. I don't like sitting around and watching television. I'm not interested in reruns of Game of Thrones or whatever. But, you know, stress makes back pain worse. So it's really important to try and surrender to it, which I'm failing to do spectacularly. Hence this video. I do have quite a few people in my classes who do struggle with chronic and acute back pain. What I have is acute. It comes occasionally. As long as I keep hobbling around, staying fairly mobile, but very, very carefully, all of the muscles will release and everything will be fine. Some of the people I work with are in constant pain. So, as you can see, I'm not flinging myself around like I would normally be. I'm fine as long as I'm sitting. The doctor, the first time this happened very, very badly, which was back in sort of December 2019, the doctor said, well, of course you're fine when you're sitting down because your body is currently couch-shaped. And she was right. So I'm okay sitting in cross legs. When my back starts to hurt during class, I just carried on. We moved everything into seated positions and we did some, you know, some more relaxing, restful work, which in 30-degree heat is fine. So what I want to do today is run you through the kind of stretches that I do, not as soon as it happens, but as the day goes on, after taking some medicine, after being 100% sure that it is a muscular issue, the kind of movements that I would do, other than hobbling around my house like an old woman, to try and stretch the muscles and keep them moving. I'm not trying to release these muscles completely because nothing but time will do that. But it is very important with back pain, doctors prescribe movement. You have to be really careful. So let me start by saying, if you are experiencing nerve pain or a slipped disc or a bulging disc, you really need to be speaking with your doctor and your physiotherapist. So this, what I'm doing today, is specifically because I know that what happens to my back is muscular. It bends me double, it's like having cramp, and it will release at its own time in its own way. If you've never experienced back pain before and you have woken up this morning and thrown your back out, or got out of the car and thrown your back out, this is not where you belong. You need to speak to your doctor and they will check your symptoms to make sure that you don't need to be visiting the doctor's surgery or the hospital to get a proper x-ray and checkup. So this is really for people who know what they're dealing with. Everything that we do is very gentle, very calm, slow, measured movements, no jerking in and out of postures, no flinging yourself into anything, no flamboyance, no large movements. If you try to move between one posture and another too quickly, And if you don't rest into your postures, you may jar that back again, which is the opposite of what we want. So it's all deep breaths, it's all holding postures for quite a long time. So this is quite good for the hot weather, actually. But it's not going to be a lot of fun for anybody who wants a huge amount of strength or vibrancy. This is about surrender. As you can see, I have bolster. It could not be anything better for people who have back pain and who practice yoga. To be honest with you, if you practice yoga regularly, then even if you use it once a year, a bolster is a really useful thing to have. If you do not have a bolster, you can grab a handful of pillows or get someone else to do it for you if you are currently bent double. Grab a couple of pillows, roll them up, bind them with your yoga strap, or a thick, heavy blankets work quite well. I wouldn't necessarily recommend duvets because they tend to flatten down unless you have one of those really firm duvets. You can manage without bolster. You could put block. You could use a block and put it under your head when we use the bolster. It's just that this is so beautifully supportive. I really recommend. You can have cushions under your head as well. So be, versatile. You can improvise, or you can have someone else improvise for you. All right. So I'm working on the basis of my particular back pain that I'm experiencing today. There's no pain there at the moment because I'm not sitting in a painful position. But as soon as I start to move, you'll see I have to move very, very carefully. Since I'm in a seated position, you'd think it would be a good idea to start with seated, but what I want to do is come into a child's pose to start with. And it's going to be a supported child's pose. So here's my bolster. The reason we're going to start with child's pose is because my back is most comfortable in a folded position. So it's the back bending and the twisting that is going to cause problems for me. And I want to ease into some gentle back bend. So absolutely nothing I do is going to be deep today. So I'm going into a normal child's pose. Knees are just a little bit apart and sitting my bum back towards my heels, and just going to put my chest and my head on this bolster, and I'm really trying very hard not to do any sudden movements. And as you can see, this is a nice posture because the spine is quite nice and long, head just turning to one side, bum sitting back towards the heels, and this whole section of the spine, this is the section of my spine that is fully seized up here. This section of my spine is getting a good stretch. I would say it's sort of the lumbar region and the sacrum. I can feel the muscles around the spine have seized. So those muscles are called the erector spinae. Also that spasm goes all the way across to the interior obliques. For me, it's often fatigue, exhaustion, or stress related, but I'm not really experiencing any of that at the moment, so it might just be bad luck today. So in this posture, I'm just breathing very, very deeply and endeavoring to make these breaths abdominal. So through the nose, inhaling so that the belly expands, because it's a little bit compressed. I can feel that movement of the diaphragm transferring a little bit towards the lower back. So there's this nice feeling of internal movement. A little stretch and expansion around the lower back as I breathe in, and a long, slow breathing out to release. Just keep in mind that all of this is about a combination of stress release, because stress makes back pain worse. So frustrating and infuriating. So this kind of movement, this kind of restful yoga, a bit like yin yoga really, it's not just about stretching out the muscles and soothing the body into a sense of safety and comfort, and that it can allow those muscles for release. But it's also to calm the mind, lower the blood pressure. And some people are actually very, very good patients, but you can
come over to my house and ask my partner, and he'll tell you about what a bad patient I am. I mean, just the fact that I'm doing this is a good indication of what a bad patient I am. Just breathing, enjoying. You can be in this posture for as long as you need to, 3, 4, 5 minutes. It's child's pose, supported. If you didn't have cushions or bolsters or pillows to rest on, you could have a couple of blocks under your forehead. It's not as relaxing, that much is true. You could use a spare rolled up mat. That is a very, very good solution to a bolster. Just breathing. Never do anything that's painful. And remember, the intention of this class is not to release or heal. It's to provide some solace, some feeling of comfort to the body, feeling of stretching out and calming the mind a little bit as well. So this posture is so easy to do for me when I'm having an issue with my lower back, because this is exactly the sort of shape that it's happy to be in. And what I want to do is ease into slightly longer, maybe even slightly back bendier shapes. So very, very carefully. I'm just going to take my arms a little bit wider, because what I want to do is not engage muscles in my lower back as much as I can. I'm avoiding using my lower back muscles, so I'm going to default to my arms somewhat. I'm pressing into my hands and use my arm strength to lift the upper body and to get my bolster forward a bit. Walk the hands forward. I'm tucking my toes. Can you see I'm keeping my back grounded, because I do not want to suddenly arch my back. Coming down into forearms. I'm going to turn my head and shuffle forward. So my chest and my head both resting on my bolster. Can you see why it's such a useful thing? Because if I were to take this posture, which I will shortly, without the bolster, I would be going into quite a deep chest opener and quite a deep back bend for when you're bent, when your back is couch shaped. So I don't want that to happen. I need to really ease in. And flatten out my feet, thumbs in the air, head below the heart. So the nice thing about having the head below the heart at this point, or it's barely below the heart, I mean it will be shortly. Nice thing about having the head just a little bit slanting down is that it's a very mild inversion. Actually, for me, this is an extremely mild inversion. It's quite comfortable for a lot of people because it's not too deep. As I shuffle my arms forward and my head forward a little bit, you see there's a small arch coming into my lower back. So I'm just very, very lightly waving my hips from side to side. And you can consider this to be a situation where you're sort of using your body to soothe those muscles that have tightened up, cramped up, and just gently reassuring that part of your body that, hey, you know what, it's okay, I'll look after you, and you can start to release a little bit. Just keeping moving is extremely important when your back hurts. And it's interesting because normally it's my left shoulder. Anybody who knows me will tell you it's my left shoulder that aches most of the time. It's where I carry my stress. But since I threw my lower back out, my left shoulder's felt fine. Aversion therapy, questionable. I think I'd rather have a shoulder pain, to be honest. So just breathing. You can have a little wave from side to side. It feels good for you. You can be in stillness and you can be here as long as you need to. Just remember, when you stay in postures for a very long time, sometimes you can seize up into those postures. So just be very gentle. Everything you do, very, very gentle. So from here, I'm just going to do a little bit of rounding and arching. So as I exhale, you could have the hand on the ground if you wanted to here. I've sort of Just going into a very relaxed situation. As I exhale, I'm just gently drawing my navel towards, very gently drawing my navel towards my spine, rounding my lower back. And then inhaling to relax and just some very, very small movements, not dissimilar to cat-cow. Very, very small. Actually, this is more similar to doing pelvic rolls, lying your back. You can periodically turn your head the opposite way, because if you keep your head turning the same way all the way through, you're going to get stiff neck to add to your stiff back. So, okay, let's walk the hands back very carefully. Use your arm strength to draw back. If you can, take the knees out a little bit wider, Bring your bolster with you if you're using it. And now let's just soften back into child's pose. So this is a different sensation now because we're opening into the hip joints and the backs of the hips are growing a little bit more broad. Spine still nice and long. You can see nice long spine. There's no deep movement in the spine at all, but the hips are opening out a little bit. This may not be possible for you if your back has tightened up so much that your glutes have engaged fully. So this, I'm able to do this because it's freed up during the course of the day. The last time this happened to me, I wouldn't have been able to do this until day 3 because my glutes were just completely seized up. So, you know, the best I could manage was, you know, moving from one room to another. I had to hold on to walls. So, you know, the wide leg knees to chest may not be possible. Wide leg child's pose may not be possible for you right now. Just taking these big breaths. Keeping the eyes closed if you can, really keeping an eye on sensation in the body. If anything starts to go numb or tingly, you need to very carefully come out of the posture. Anything starts to feel a little tight, very carefully make your way out of the posture. So never, you shouldn't be letting yourself go that far in, because obviously if your back is seized up or aching or hurting, you need time to move between one thing and the next. So keeping the whole thing very moderate. Okay, so again, stay as long as you need to. I'm just going to bring my hands back, push into them, coming up a little bit, and still keeping my back curved. I'm just going to move this out of the way for a moment and see, and do a little bit of work without it. I'm going to bring the knees back in, walking the hands forward. So I am just sliding between variations of child's pose right now. I'm going to come into a forearm position. And the reason I'm going to do this is because I want to do some cat-cow, but cat-cow movement on all fours with the hands on the floor tends to be quite a big movement, and I just want a really tiny one. It's easier for me to do that with my elbows down. So elbows are under the shoulders, knees are under the hips. I'm going to keep my feet flat, but you can tuck your toes if you want to. Shoulders drawing back and down, gazing between the hands. I'm just going to do some really tiny movements. So just inhaling to arch my back a tiny bit. Chest comes forward, shoulders draw back, just gazing forward a little bit. So exhale, pulling the navel softly inwards and upwards and rounding the spine. And I'm focusing on the section of my back that has seized, lumbar region, all the way down here, coccyx, sacrum, lumbar region. Normally I would be focusing on my shoulders, but today it's all lower back for me. And I'm making this movement really, really small, which is, as I say, much easier to do when you're on forearms. Inhaling to arch, exhaling to round. Always keeping the neck long. The movement does go throughout the whole of the spine, but my internal sort of my brain is focused more on my lower back. And hopefully, as we move through the class, we will be able to do more of a full cat-cow on all fours. We'll just see how it goes. And so I want to get some other forms of movement into my spine as well. So I'm just going to come to neutral. Take a breather if you need to. You can go back to your child's pose. You can be back on your bolster. Just going to wave my hips from side to side. So this is hips. I'm not moving my shoulders. I am not slouching my shoulders at all. So my shoulders are not hugging my spine. They're not wrapping around my chest. And I'm not moving my shoulders towards my hips. I'm just using my waist to wave my hips from side to side. It might not be that obvious to see. On the screen, it's just a rocking movement. And this is more about freeing up tissues than it is about moving the spinal region. I really do not want any kind of deep bends or twists at this point. There's too much risk of re-spiraling as it's freeing up. And good news, well, maybe good news, building up a body strength, being on forearms. So that's pretty decent. You can turn these into circles if you want. Just depends on where you are at the moment, how your back feels. I'm just rolling my hips around in circles. I'm going to go back the other way. All very careful movements, very, very careful. So this, my back went, it was about 10:30, and it is now 5 o'clock, and I've been taking ibuprofen, paracetamol, and I have been moving around with a stick like an old lady all day, so I've not really been that still today, and this is me slowly easing out of it. As I said, it was not too bad. Okay, let's sit back on the heels. And this time, see if you can just be in child's pose unsupported. Allow that to totally curl over the sides and the forehead to come down to the ground. I'm going to say for some people, this is an awful posture because it does really compress the chest. It really does compress the belly. So if this is not right for you, you can take your knees a little bit wider. But not as wide leg child's pose. So it's not knees out very wide, toes point towards each other. It's just take the knees out wide enough that you've got room to breathe freely. And that is your first priority. Breathing freely is 100% the first thing that you need to do in all yoga, but particularly when you're dealing in pain management. Breath is where it's at. So in standard child's pose here. I will recommend, especially if you're not used to working on forearms as we have been, keeping your elbows down, palms of the hands together, cross the thumbs and draw those thumbs back towards the back of the neck. You do not have to stay still. You can keep fidgeting around in small ways the whole time. You just do what feels good for you. You have to be very, very adaptable. Okay, let's release the hands. Now, if you can, walk the hands in a little bit, and let's take the knees a little wider. So slightly being careful. Walking the hands forward, let the chest sink down. So you can see just a little tiny bit more of a back bend and a deeper hip opening here. And I'm going to very carefully have a little think about walking my hands over to the side with a view to stretching out to the side of my body. So I'm not going as far as I normally would. And I am really not pushing. So there is no part of me that is trying to deepen this stretch. I'm literally moving my arms and letting the shape of my body do the work. There is very little compression on my right hand side. I'm not letting any part of my body become too squashed up. Left hand side is extended, the right hand side is slightly less extended. That's all that's happening. My spine has got a soft moon shape, crescent moon shape. Deep breaths out to overstretching away. And then very, very carefully, again, pressing into the hands. So it's my arms that are doing the work, not my core, it's not my back, because your lower back does a huge amount of work when you're lifting and moving. So what I'm doing is using my arms instead. I'm transferring all the strength into my arms. Walk hands over to the left. I suppose it's easier said than done. If you're pretty decently strong in the upper body, it's a little bit easier. And that might be something to consider if you're prone to lower back pain. You really, really do need to work on your upper body and abdominal strength and your back strengthening, because back spasms won't go away any more than hamstring cramps or calf cramps. But having a little bit of upper body strength does help you to manage a little bit better. So we'll put that on the list of things to do at a later date. Softening in, no pushing, no pulling, no tensing up. Lovely stuff. And walking the hands to center. Use your arms to support you. Elbows come back down to the ground again. Use your arms to support you. Square up a little bit. Gently, carefully draw the knees back in underneath the hip joints. And let's see about maybe deepening that curve in the spine, that back bend a little bit. So the arms can go forward. I'm pressing into my hands because I just want to see how far I can go. So I'm just going to draw my shoulders back and my hips back over my knees and let my chest very carefully sink down to my forehead comes to the ground. And here I'm fairly well supported. Could have a block under my head or my hands in stacked fists under my head if I needed to. I'm just gently allowing my back. So if you look at the screen, you'll be able to see just gentle back bend. Very, for me, a very gentle back bend starting to come in. It feels quite nice. I can feel where the ache of the spasm is, but it does not hurt. I can just feel that sensitive section of my back, which is tightened up. I'm not trying to release it. I'm just breathing. I'm being extremely careful. So even the breathing is just not as deep as it would normally be because I do not want to over-engage. Remember, back spasms are reflexive. You're not in charge of what's happening here. Okay, I don't want to be here too long. It doesn't feel quite safe enough, so I'm just going to roll forward onto my forearms a little bit. And I'm going to come up onto all fours. Let's just see about some thread the needle and maybe some cat-cow. Wow, the glamour. Okay, hands under shoulders, fingers spread. Knees under hips or wider if that's more comfortable for you. We're not going to twist. We're just going to thread the right hand underneath the left hand, very, very carefully, drawing the upper body down on its side, turning the head to the left, and let your upper body just rest down onto your shoulder. And what I recommend here is focus on your shoulders for a moment. Just take your attention. You need to sort of pay attention to your lower back being safe and secure. But just enjoy the opportunity to stretch out your shoulder here, because you know one of the horrible things about lower back pain is that you tend to hunch everything up to protect, and shoulders do get painful and tight, and postures do close up. So you need to release everything really as much as possible. Not all today. This would not be the right time for that, but over time. Deep breaths, very calming, very soothing. And let's very carefully unravel. So start by pressing into your elbow, left elbow, unwrap your right hand, and then come up onto arms. As I say, just use your arm strength for all of this work. Try and keep your back out of it. Thread, left hand underneath the right, and settle your body down, and just be careful, it might be different on this side. The thumbs in the air, and now we really are inverted, so your head is below your heart. The head is quite, it can be for many people very relaxing to be in this kind of an inversion. Blood is going to the head more, can be very restful. To be upside down, just a little bit upside down. So if you usually in thread the needle tend to go in for the bigger twists and chest opens, this is not the time for that. Just focus on stretching out the shoulder, thumb in the air. And all this time there is a very, very soft arch in my lower back. Maybe not in yours, but certainly for me this is a little bit of back, very tiny back bend. I've actually got quite a deep arch in my lower back. So, you know, comparatively a very small back bend, but still positive. Lovely. Very firmly pressing into your right hand, use your right arm to slowly come back into your box shape. Let's see about the possibility of some cat-to-cow and tabletop pose. And you're going to keep this very moderate, and there's going to be very little windiness and very little of the bigger movements unless you particularly want to do them. So all I want to do initially is come to the version of neutral I can manage today, which is, yeah, fairly neutral. It feels quite nice actually. Elbows pointing in towards each other, fingers spread. Inhale as you draw the shoulders back, and very carefully, that's as much as I can do, lift the tailbone, chest comes forward. As you exhale, round the spine, lengthen out to the arms. And my cat-cow is normally enormous. This is as much as I can do right now. Inhaling to lift the heart gently, gaze forward, tailbone comes up. Exhale to round the spine. You can see a little tiny back bend there. You see a little tiny back bend? Just work with what you've got at any given time, working with what you've got. I've always felt, since the first time this happened to me, I just felt how fortunate I was that I have so much training in understanding sensation. And I've learned to understand sensation in my body. So I knew I had a sense, I could feel the muscles, I could feel the mechanics of my body and how they had changed. And I could feel what was happening, and that movement was the most important thing, and that sitting in front of the television or avoiding moving because of fear of pain was not going to help. As it is in my house, there are no big umbrella, sort of long umbrellas or anything like that. And all I had was a 6 kilo staff weight to use, to lean on. So I was using a 6 kilo staff for strengthening as a walking stick. So, you know, swings and roundabouts all the way down. Right, one more round. This feels pretty good. If you're tired, you just stop or you come back into your child's pose. So I'm going to come to neutral, and I'm going to try that swinging with the hips from side to side again. And see if I can very slightly draw the shoulder and the hip towards each other. See, I'm going a little bit more quickly. I don't want to move too fast, but I also don't want to work too slowly because I want to keep this soft. You need to work at the pace that works for you. And also you need to take a range of movement that is comfortable for you. So I've done quite a bit already. It is very, very warm in here. It's probably about 30 degrees in here. So, you know, warming is not an issue. If it was cold, then you would be going much more carefully right now. And then back to that slight circular movement. If your knees don't like this, leave it out. I'm just going to roll around. And as you can see, I'm just keeping
My back is still generally curling under. I'm trying really to not work too hard to bend my back. I want to not keep it too tightly curled under, but I'm just moving between neutral and curled. We'll be very careful. I nearly did it. Nearly did it. So just very careful. Great. Okay, let's tuck the toes. Sit the bum back carefully towards the toes. And I'm just going to press into my hands for a moment and press into the toes and stretch the toes out. So one of the things I struggle with, the reason I find it hard to stand and walk is because when my back gives me, when this happens for me in the back, it's the grounding through the feet that re-triggers the pain. It's the actual feeling of being upright is what gets lost for me. So stretching out the feet is quite a nice feeling when you are struggling to stand fully on both feet. It's just really a reminder for everybody that back pain, all sorts of pain, back pain, fibromyalgia, osteoarthritis, it's not limited to any specific kind of people. You can be strong, you can have good core strength. And just reach my arms forward, seeing if I can get a stronger child's pose now. You can be very strong, you can have very good core strength, you can have very high mobility, you can have decently moderate stress levels, you can be well, healthy, active. Your body weight, doesn't matter what your body weight is, doesn't matter what your body size is, all of these things can be fine. And one day something happens. And it doesn't necessarily, it's not an injury, it just happens. You spend, it's sort of slightly weird. You sort of think, well, I spent 10 years practicing yoga all the time. It's not the yoga that's caused this. I spent the better part of 15 years swimming every day, most days. But that has never injured me. It's just life. It just happens, doesn't it? Okay. Right. That's a good stretch. This one feels really nice. Okay, let's walk the hands in. We'll do some seated stretches. So actually, if you want to, there is another inversion here you could have. If you're normally a person who likes a deep inversion in the headstand, just have your hands underneath your shoulders. We're already curled up close to rabbit pose, and it might feel nice. And flatten out the feet. Crown of the head rolls onto the floor. And this, I'll tell you what's nice about this. I'm just going to take my knees back a little bit. It is absolutely the top of my head, the crown of my head that's on the floor. The thing that's nice about this is it stretches out the back of the neck. So it's really important to remember that all of the muscles in your body work in a chain. So just because you're trying to deal with discomfort in one part of your back, that doesn't mean that you ignore all the other ones. In many ways, this is quite a full, restful practice. Most of your body is going to get a very gentle stretch. For many of you, especially if you come to my classes, the upper body strengthening factors here are going to be, there's going to be quite a lot of upper body strengthening. And since we're at it, despite all of the difficulties, I can definitely put us in dolphin. So if we're working with upper body strength, if you are working with a sore back, but you are able to lengthen your spine, not arch it, lengthen it, and you want to build a little upper body strength, there's nothing to stop you from doing dolphin. Perhaps not downward facing dog, because there's more of a risk of arching your back a bit in that one, but dolphin, it's not bad. So let's have a go. Let's see. We'll go very carefully. Elbows under shoulders, hands on the floor, fingers spread wide, tuck the toes, sit back on the heels, reach back, and then when you're ready, you will need to pull your belly in. Just pick up one knee to start with, and then the other. Very, very carefully. Keep the knees bent, draw bum back, and then maybe lengthen out the legs. You might have to adjust the position of your legs. I'm just going to shuffle my back a bit because I don't want the deep bend. Go back.
And have a little pedal, so that's nice for the hamstrings. No, more for the calves actually than the hamstrings. Nice for the ankles. So there we go, dolphin. You see, it's not really bending my back at all. It's nice for my shoulders. It's nice for my chest. Really great for upper body, which is what I need right now, upper body work. I need to burn a little energy so that I don't feel angry about being stuck in a single position all the time, which I think I've just proven I don't have to be. Have another deep breath or two. Come down as soon as you're ready, but do come out very carefully. By shifting your shoulders forward, I come down one knee at a time when my back aches, because just from extra care. Let's walk. Send bum back, walk the hands back. See? Not bad for someone who currently can't walk. Right, I can crawl, however. So grab your cushion, whatever you need. Let's do a little bit of seated work. We're going to finish upright because it's a bit easier to be upright. We could do some reclining work, but actually I find that with the reclining work, it's far too easy to unexpectedly end up in a back bend that you were hoping to avoid. So everything we would normally do lying on our backs, we can do seated to some extent. So I'm coming into a cross-legged position. You can be sitting on your knees. You could be sitting with your feet together and your knees out wide in a big diamond. You could have your legs out wide completely or out in front of you. My sitting bones are always supported when I do seated work, but particularly today, I need that support just a bit more. So my spine is tall, but it is not arched. Shoulders drawing back and down. Let's have the hands down by the sides, in line with the hips. And everything we do, we're just going to stay shoulders in line with hips, no leaning forwards, no leaning back. Just gently take one of those hands over to the right a little bit. So I'm not mirroring. Over to the right in line with the hip. Take the other arm up and just reach over. Arm strength. So I am not using my back at all. I'm stretching it. I'm using my arm to support me. I'm going very carefully. I've gone just slightly too deep. I can feel the compression on my right side. It's just slightly too much. So I'm just going to come up a bit. Very gently drawing the navel in as I exhale to support my back. But I'm not doing it too firmly because all those muscles are connected. And sometimes if I overexert my abdominal muscles at this point, it will trigger pain in my back muscles. So you've just got to be really careful. Ready, coming up. Just keep breathing all the way through. So don't be tempted to hold your breath. Over to the other side. So left hand comes down. My left hand is just about a foot away from my left hip. Reach and extend. Remember this, it looks compressed, but it's not compressed. The left side of my body is feeling quite open. I'm reaching up and over. It's not a big side bend, but it does feel really good. Just breathing. My grounded hand is working fairly hard right now because I want my back to feel completely light. So I'm using quite a lot of upper body strength here to be able to be in this side bend. My belly is pulling in. I'm using actually a surprising amount of core strength. Pelvic floor is pulling up. I'll come up very carefully. Hands come to the knees, and let's try a little bit of cat-cow in a seated position, any seated position. In fact, I recommend trying it with the feet out in front. You gotta lift those legs manually sometimes to avoid getting too involved. Feet out in front. I need to put them a little bit further forward so you can't see my feet. I'm just loosely holding onto my thighs. Still got a cushion under my bum. Inhale, chest draws forward, shoulders draw back, chin lifts. And exhale, round spine very carefully. Remember,
I've got something under my bum, so it's all very cushioned. Inhale to draw forward. So it's actually this little pillow that I use. It's crescent moon shaped, so it's a very good wedge. I rarely sit completely on it. It's just a nice wedge to help the hips open. Just some nice rounds of cat-cow. And the reason I like this is because you can use your thighs as support, and it really does enhance that feeling of lengthening. The spine, the ripple of the spine feels really nice actually. Let's just have one last round. This is the biggest back bend I've managed all day. Perfect. Fingertips to the floor. Come back to whichever seated position you preferred. It's nice to have that little bit of cat-cow and feel like a normal human being. Okay, let's see about the possibility of a soft twist. Your twists need to come from the waist upwards. So we'll have the hands to the heart, and we're not going to turn the neck at this point. We're just going to keep the head in line with the chest. So take a deep breath in. Shoulders relaxed, and as you exhale very gently, twist to the left. This twist would not be big anyway. Inhale to center, and exhale, twist to the right. As I say, for me, these twists are never very big because they're thoracic. You're not going a long way around. Just keep moving through. Exhaling into your twist. You can pull the navel in to support your lower back. A little bit of abdominal work, but if you find that pulling the navel in results in you twisting too deeply, then go lighter. I'm not doing much. This is all upper body. One more on each side. I'm just going to finish here on the right because it starts on the left. Release the hands. Let's take the arms up if that's all right for you. If it's not all right, then just position yourself into your twist position. Take the left hand, right hand over to the left thigh. Left hand can wrap around the waist or just sit on the floor behind you. Draw your left shoulder back and gently turn your chest to the left. You can turn your head and try looking over your left shoulder if you want. This is quite a deep stretch for me. It feels nice, but I can feel I'm going to the edges of what I can do right now. It's not actually miles off from what I normally do, but it just feels a lot less free because I have to be much more careful. Spine is tall. Twist is coming primarily from the navel upwards. Feels nice. Breathing is very important. Just sticking with diaphragmatic breaths. Good stuff. And then just carefully walk the hands back to center. Just take that movement very carefully. Again, you can take the arms up. It just helps with a little bit of lengthening, but if it's too strong, just take one hand across. So when you're ready, your left hand can go across to your right thigh, right hand can wrap around the waist or rest on the floor behind, which I think is a little more gentle. Stay tall, exhale, just allow your right shoulder to draw back, chest turning to the right. Maybe your head will turn. For me, my head turning in this direction is easier because it's a less stiff side for me, but I don't want to, so I'm not going to. And look, breathe. So, you know, how deep you go into postures is also affected by the time of year. So if I was doing this practice in the winter, this far in, if this room was, you know, if the heating was on, I might be turning my head now because I want to keep heat in the body, but I don't want that at this exact moment in time. I want to keep the body cool because it is extremely hot today. I actually love the heat. I don't worry. I don't really struggle with overheating too much, but that doesn't mean that you need to generate more, especially when you're trying to heal an injury. Okay, when you're ready, very gently walk the hands back to center. Let's have a little forward fold. So I want to just bring my feet forward quite carefully into butterfly pose. I'm going to keep my hips on my cushion. So feet together, make a big diamond, just sliding off that cushion there, so it's nice and comfortable. I'm not going to fold any more than my body will let me. So it's a big deep breath in. It's a yin approach. So as you exhale, come forward as far as the hips will allow. And then once you've gone as far as you can, maybe you'll be able to let the back curve ahead and just make a little sort of shell for yourself. My teacher used to say it's so calming to go into these positions because it feels like you just shut off the noise of the world, and I think that's very true. Just breathe. Absolutely no need to go deep at all. For many people, this is quite a tiny posture, like to come down as far as I've come down, which is medium, would feel absolutely impossible. For some people, they can come all the way to the ground and they feel nothing. For me, this is quite nice. I don't do this posture very often, but it feels really nice because I can actually feel without any pain at all. Again, I can feel all of the muscles that have, that are the ones that need the love, need the attention, that have seized up around my spine. So I can feel them, they're not hurting, they're not in any way complaining, but I'm just drawing attention to that section of the spine, here is spinae erecti, that have spasmed. They're trying to protect something that doesn't need protecting, and I'm easing into those muscles and saying, hey, you know what, we're okay. We're breathing, we're stretching, we're moving a little bit. This feels quite nice. So if I was just practicing on my own, I would probably spend another minute or so down here, maybe even longer. Again, if you've got a bolster, you can support this position by putting the bolster underneath you. Learning these postures is a valuable thing because actually, for any kind of aches, pains, discomfort, stresses, strains, anxieties, anything like that, all of these postures are very, very nice. It doesn't have to be because you have specifically encountered some acute painful thing. It can just be getting home from work and needing to put a few moves together just to release some tension, or from sitting on an office chair. Office chairs are the worst, aren't they? Yes, it could be anything like that. But yeah, no, I can feel it's a really nice sensation. I can just feel the section of the spine that's become a little bit bruised from that strong spasm that happened. Are you ready? Take your time, be here as long as you need to. When you're ready, we're going to walk the hands back up. Just bring the knees back together. And as I said, I'm using as many muscles of my body as I can to support my spine. So I'm not worrying too much about, sometimes when I'm sitting on a chair, I'm moving my legs with my arms because I've got upper body strength. I do not want to be using my back for any kind of lifting today. So I'm actually just, as much as possible, avoiding that. You've got your thighs, you've got your arms, they're all very strong. Just want to do a little bit of hip opening to close. If you are able to comfortably lie down without jarring yourself, I can, but we'll be here all afternoon while I maneuver myself onto my back. If you can do that, then you can do this lying down. All I want to do is a very soft wipers. I'm just going to take that cushion away because I want a bit more range of movement, and actually I might shuffle around just so you can see. So I'm just reaching back, leaning onto my wrists. If your wrists don't like this, you could come down onto elbows. It's quite a nice stretch for the wrists for me. Knees are quite wide, at least as wide as a standard mat. Feet going out to the sides, away from the body. And I'm just going to do a very, very soft rock from side to side. I'm not in any way going all the way over to get my knees to the floor. I just want to start by checking how it feels. I'm also not breath synchronized at this point. I'm just letting those knees move in a way that is intuitive. Breath is still flowing, but it doesn't have to be in time with the movement here. I'm focused on the hips, so I'm not too worried about upper body. You see, lower down my back, there's a little roll coming in the hips and the waist, and that movement is good news. So as I move deeper, I'm moving more slowly. I'm going to start moving towards a breath synchronized movement, and that is only because it started to happen on its own. So just very, very slowly. This movement for me is actually going quite a lot less deep than I would normally go, but you can see it's coming little by little. When I can allow a hip to lift and the knees to go closer to the ground, again, it's good news. I'm doing a lot of weight bearing through my hands right now, just to, again, allow the movement to be reasonably passive. Actually, I'm trying not to do too much active stretching into my back and letting my body, other parts of the body, do the active work. Now, just out of interest, I'm going to let those knees lower and just stay. I'm going to come back onto my forearms a bit, very carefully here. Yeah, it's not too bad. Let's just see how that feels after a few breaths. Just waiting to see if anything happens. Feels pretty good, actually. We are going to carefully come back up to center, very carefully, and then maybe over to the other side. So I'm just going to take the lower knee down first, and then see if the other one wants to follow, because the right side is, I think, where my whatever injury initiated. So I'm just being super careful, rearranging all the way down. Realistically, all yoga is like this. You're always rearranging, shuffling, micro adjusting. But when there is pain in the mix, or when there is an injury in the mix, it is all the more important for you to be connected to your own practice. So the reason I'm doing this video is to demonstrate this is what happens. You know, we're doing it all the time in class. We're constantly saying you work at your own pace, you don't rush in and out of postures, you don't need to move between postures in the same way as the teacher does. You know, this is an example of that. Yeah, sure, you can take your back pain into a yoga class. I have quite a few people who do come to yoga class with their back pain, and they are very, very good at adjusting everything in class. They are not at all bothered about being in sync with other people in the room. And that's because that's the culture of our classes. So, you know, if you're going to a yoga class and you feel under pressure to keep up, there are two things to consider. Is it you? Is it you who makes yourself feel under pressure to keep up, or is it the teacher? And if it's the teacher, that's a good opportunity to have a conversation with them and just let them know, I'm experiencing this back pain, can I have some variations, some adjustments, and don't worry about me if I don't keep up. Often people will say to me, don't worry about me if I don't keep up, or if I'm resting, I'm not feeling great, just leave me alone, I'll be fine. And so I do. Right, that felt pretty good. I think that's enough. If you want to do some bits and bobs on your back, feel free. You can have some pelvic curls might be nice. You can have some knees to chest. You could probably have some happy baby. I would leave out any bridge work until you are healed. You can do wipers on your back. If you're coming into a reclining posture or a front lying posture, you must be very careful of your back bends. That's why I'm not doing them here, because I really need to avoid back bends, because I'm compressing the area that I need to stretch. So I would suggest maybe not today, but if you want to, you can do it. Just be careful. Thank you for joining me today. Let's just finish off with one breath. Sitting nice and tall, just checking in, noticing how you feel. Hands down by the sides of palms facing forwards. Let's inhale and reach the arms up. And exhale. Start. Thanks for joining me.